Hello everyone. So today we are going to discuss about the reporting techniques. But before we start discussing about the reporting techniques, it is essential for us to understand what reporting is all about. Though you all must be aware of the fact that reporting basically is something where the reporters kind of go outside and gather the news and bring it in front of the reporters. So basically, the reporters maintain a very close relationship with the different news sources. While maintaining the relationship, they try to present the news in a comprehensive manner. That is, they kind of, after getting hold of the news items, they arrange the news items in a way so that it becomes understandable for the readers as well as the viewers. And in determining which particular news item is kind of newsworthy, they also kind of check the sources from where they get the news items. So all these techniques or all this together comprises the job of a reporter, where the reporter's main job is to bring the news items in front of the viewers and audiences. And in order to do that, the reporters kind of make it essential to check and to verify the news items before they bring it in front of the audience. So moving on, because today's topic is about the reporting techniques, so it becomes essential for us to understand what beat reporting is. Now, when we talk about the different kinds of reporting, we have to keep in mind that the reporting techniques are basically divided into different beats. That means that in most of the bigger news corporations and news organizations, there are different journalists who basically cover each beat and present the news in front of the viewers and the audiences. So this concept basically was developed in the 19th century in United States, basically to increase the efficiency of the work of the journalists. So they divided the journalists into different beats so that they could go out and cover a particular and specialized field of reporting so that the news could be varied and there could be a deeper analysis of the news items. This kind of reporting, as we can understand, is a very specialized kind of reporting, and the audiences do get a very deeper understanding of the different issues that the journalists or the reporters cover. And it also saves a lot of resources. As a journalist who is covering a particular beat, he or she is well experienced and well trained to cover the particular area which he has been authorized to cover by the news organization. So there are, as I said, different kinds of beat reporting. So like political, crime reporting, sports, legal, civic, social issues, health, education, lifestyle, fashion and films, as well as reporting about the disaster and tragedies. All these fall within the different categories or techniques of reporting. So we will be discussing each of them one by one. So first we will start with the most important beat, which is political reporting. So political reporting has been considered to be very important because people want to know about what is happening in the domain of politics, as politics kind of shapes a country's economy as well as the social issues are also shaped by the political domain or area. So mainly it is about reporting about the parliamentary sessions in a particular country or the governmental policies that the government is thinking of bringing out in any country all over the world. It is also about reporting about the parties which exist and the kind of activities that the party people are doing on a regular basis. It is also about looking in this age of new media into the social media profiles of the politicians, because that plays a very important role to understand what they are thinking in terms of understanding their psyche or their role in the party to which they belong. Also, when it is the time of elections, the election campaigns of the political parties, as well as the ways in which the elections are being conducted, and who is the winner and who actually has won the elections, all these actually fall within the category of political reporting. And in order to do this kind of a reporting, a thorough knowledge of the rules and regulations as the way in which a political system works in a country is important. So it depends on which particular country or which particular state or area you are covering. So basically, if somebody is covering the state of West Bengal, then they have to be well versed about the way in which elections happen in the state, as well as the number of seats that are available in this entire state. Also, it is important for any political reporter to know about the way in which the country's laws and rules and regulations regarding any particular parliamentary session, or any particular way in which parliament conducts this session or implements a rule is being formulated. So that knowledge has to be there. So, based on the area of coverage, a particular knowledge about the politicians, the district and city levels, units of political parties, where the meetings are being held, as well as the senior leaders, the people from the ministry, that kind of relationship as well as knowledge about these aspects are kind of important for any reporter. Moving on, definitely we will talk now about crime reporting. But one thing we have to understand, that in case of political reporting, the important aspect that has to be kept in mind is that based on the country of coverage, the rules and regulations and the laws have to be studied thoroughly, so that the reporting can be done in depth and properly, and the news can be presented and brought in front of the people. Coming to crime reporting, as the name suggests, crime reporting basically pertains to the different kinds of crime that happens in a particular region and in a particular country. So, first of all, it is very important to understand the working of the police, the different kinds of sections of the Indian law, because we stay in India, that's why I'm talking about Indian law. But basically, if somebody is staying in some other country, then they have to be well versed about the laws pertaining to that particular country and region. So, knowledge about Indian Penal Code is important, as well as understanding about the working of the courts, the kind of courts we have in our country as well as in our states. That is important. And what kind of punishment a particular person can get if he or she actually does some kind of a crime, that also is very important. Also, there has to be a knowledge about the different types of crime. So there is like personal crime, property crime, inchoate crime, as well as statutory crime. So personal crime basically is a crime which is committed against any particular person. So that is a personal crime. So any kind of it can be hurting people, or physically hurting people, or killing people, murders. So that can fall within this category. Property crime is where somebody usurps the property of the other person, and without the knowledge of the other person. So that can fall within the category of property crime. Then there can be inchoate crime, where basically the crime is not committed fully, but there was a perception that the crime is going to be committed. So that can fall within the category of inchoate crime, as well as the statutory crimes, where a particular rules and regulations are prevailing in that particular state or in that particular area, and somebody is going against those rules and regulations or violating those rules and regulations. So that can fall within the category of statutory crime. So, first of all, the roles in crime reporting is very important. First is to create awareness, because by reporting about this kind of crime, the reporter is basically creating an awareness about the kind of violence that is happening in the society, and how people can actually take action against those people who are committing the crime. So an awareness is very important. That is one of the roles that the reporter undertakes when he or she is covering crime reporting. Then the second important role is to educate the people about the different laws pertaining to the crimes that happens in the country, so that people do not actually go ahead and commit a crime, so that they are kind of they know that there are certain rules and regulations when somebody is thinking of doing something against the principles or against the rules and regulations that exist in the country. And also to inform to expose certain groups or certain category of people who are harmful for the society, as well as to sensitize the people about issues related to crime, so that the people understand that why a particular crime has been committed, what is the motive behind it, and what kind of what kind of psychological understanding is kind of there when a particular person commits the crime. So these all things kind of fall within the category of crime reporting. Then we come to sports reporting, which is again very important kind of reporting, and people love sports. So sports, basically, if we consider the case of India, it's like a religion in India, and specifically cricket. People want to know about the different tournaments that are happening all over the world, whether it's cricket or badminton, hockey, football, wrestling, or shooting. And in this kind of events, basically the tournaments and the competitions that are happening has to be covered. And as in order to cover those tournaments, it's basically very important to know about the rules and regulations of the game and the experience of the person or the sports person who is playing the game for maybe a quite a long amount of time. So what is important in this kind of reporting, to keep a tab of the performance of the players, and to report about those players and the injuries that the players undergo and the fitness level of the players. So these are all very important for the reporter to know, along with the rules and regulations of the game. And while writing a sports stories, four important steps has to be followed. First of all, the story idea has to be thought about. So if it's a tournament going on, then the story idea basically remains about that particular tournament that is going on at that particular moment, because it is relevant to cover that kind of an event at that moment itself. Secondly, it is very important to understand the issue. So many a times, there are certain hassles that the sports persons go through. Maybe there is a removal of a particular player from the team, or maybe a particular captain has actually given up his or her captainship. So those areas also need to be reported, and a tab has to be kept about why it has culminated to this particular event, that the person has left the team, and why it has happened after a period of maybe 5 years or 3 years or 2 years, whatever it is. And also, in case of sports, data is very important. So the statistics about the players' performance, how many times India has kind of won a particular tournament, if it's cricket, how many times a particular player has won a particular tournament, or what is the performance level of the players, or who are the major stakeholders when it comes to a particular game. Stakeholders meaning the people who play a very important part in selection of the players, as well as the removal of the players, and the people who occupy managerial positions in selecting the players. All those aspects are also very important, and one has to be very well versed in those things in order to create a report. Also, writing is very important. The writing has to be done in such a way so that it creates an interest among the audience's mind. So sports writing, whenever a particular person covering sports is writing or creating a new story, he or she has to be well versed with the entire game of sports. That is very important. If he or she does not know about the rules and regulations and the history of the game, then it will become very difficult for that particular reporter to find a large audience. In case of sports reporting, first of all, there has to be a passion for sports, any kind of sports. So somebody might have a reporter might have a passion for cricket or sport, or maybe football, but passion for other games has also needs to be created also. So if somebody does not have a passion for this particular beat, then they will never be able to create a story which will kind of touch the audience's mind. That is kind of very important in sports reporting. And also, sports as an industry has to be understood. The rules and terminologies of each particular game has to be understood. Also, one needs to maintain a very good relationship with the people, not only the sports person, but also the people occupying the managerial areas in the sports industry. So that kind of a rapport has to be built on a continuous basis, so that it can be reported properly, and the news can be presented in front of the audiences. So now we come to legal reporting. Now, legal reporting, as the name suggests, is basically about the cases that are running in the courts. So here, it is very important to know about the way in which judicial system works. So here also it is kind of important. Like if we are living in India, then we have to know about the Indian judicial system, the way in which the courts work, and the acts and laws pertaining to the Indian judicial system. And now, if some reporter is working in some other country, then he or she has to have knowledge about the way in which their judicial system has shaped up over the years. So the history of the laws, or the way in which the judicial system has shaped up, the rules and regulations, everything becomes very important when we are covering a story where a particular case is going on in the court. In case of India, mostly stringers cover the story. Stringers basically are those people who actually present the story on one-to-one basis. So they cover the story and then they sell it to the different news channels or the news organizations. So there are different kinds of courts which are there. So a knowledge about those courts are very essential. Like civil courts, we have criminal courts, we have high court, we have supreme court. So we have to know the functioning and the hierarchy that prevails in these courts. That is something which has to be known. Also, one has to kind of understand about the ethical issues or the kind of terminology which is used in courts, so that they can report better. And they have to also write the facts properly without sensationalizing the facts. And they have to kind of look into the activities of the courts and report it properly, so that it does not amount to any kind of contempt. Because while we are dealing with reporting from the courts, we have to be very aware of the contempt related issues. And in India, we have a particular law which is basically related to contempt of courts, which can lead, if a proper reporting has not been done, it can lead to the journalist being booked under this particular act, and he can be fined or he can be sent to jail. So that has to be kind of kept in mind. According to Contempt of Courts Act 1971, there are like different kinds of contempt that exist, which is civil contempt as well as criminal contempt. So any kind of reporting which actually scandalizes or which actually goes against the norms and ethics and responsibilities of the court can actually lead to the court taking action against a particular news organization as well as a particular reporter. And one has to be also very careful that when a case is sub judice, that particular case has to be reported in a way so that it does not give one particular party an extra added advantage without the court bringing out any particular judgment. So before the judgment of the court, the media cannot kind of hold any kind of trial, because the media has not been authorized to do that. But yes, media does that in many of the occasions, and that is something which will be discussed maybe later on in some other lectures. So, in case of legal reporting, there are some journalistic defenses also, which is there in India according to the Section 5 of Contempts of Courts Act 1971, which is in relation to fair comment, ignorance of pendency, fair and accurate report. So, if it is a fair and accurate report of the proceedings of the court, then nobody is going to file a case of contempt of court against the reporter or journalist. And if it's done in a way in which it will help the people and everything has been properly reported, then it is kind of okay, and it will not amount to any kind of contempt. We move on to civic reporting. Now, civic reporting is also known as public journalism, and in today's age, civic reporting has also been kind of identified with citizen journalism. because we have new media, so we have people with smartphones who can actually go out and shoot, record, and put the material online, and the different news agencies and channel can use that material after verifying whether the clip is true or not. So here mainly the idea is that the journalist or the reporter goes to the location, listens to the stories of the citizens and people, and the readers somehow become participants of the story. And this particular stories are basically done in order to kind of make the community a part of the story. So there are different kinds of in-depth interviews, there are focus group discussions, roundtables, and community forums which the reporters organize with the people of the community in order to come up with a story or a report which can grab the attention of the people, or which can actually show the truth in the story by involving the people per se. So on one side, civic reporting is independent and detached reporting, and on the other side, it is also about participation, advocacy, and activism. So that this second area of advocacy, activism, and participation has become very important in today's age of new media, and that's the reason why civic reporting is very important, and many journalists and reporters cover this particular beat only. So now we come to reporting about social issues. So social issues are can be regarding climate change, overpopulation, immigration, civil rights and racial discrimination, gender inequality, healthcare, bullying. Everything comes under the category of social issues. And in today's age, reporting about health has become very important, especially after the COVID-19 crisis, where people have come out and journalists have been covering different issues and different kinds of laws, and different kinds of steps taken by the government all over the world in curbing this particular health crisis. Reporting about education, on the other hand, mainly covering about the policies governing education in a particular country as well as all over the world, or the workings of the NGO in the field of education. It can be school related education, it can be higher education, and the policies that the government is bringing out. So an information and knowledge of the educational system, not only about the subjects taught, but also about the administrative process which leads to recruitment in the educational in the educational field, has to be known to the reporter. And they need to also incorporate data and statistics in their reporting about the schools and colleges. Like the COVID-19 crisis has caused many school children to drop out, especially children staying in the rural areas. So that has been written by the journalists and the reporters on a day-to-day basis with proper research and statistics. So that has to be also taken into consideration. The research is kind of important in this kind of reporting. Lifestyle reporting is another category of reporting which actually people find interest in. So reporting about fashion, about the kind of food, or about the kind of restaurants that are opening, about travel, tourism, pertains to this particular category. And one needs to have a good rapport with the fashion photographers, with the choreographers, with the stylists, dietitians, yoga experts, travel experts, authors, in order to present or write this particular story. In fashion reporting, basically hairstylists, designers, ramp models, choreographers, and makeup artists, a reporter has to keep a touch with them and also understand the latest trends going on and why that particular trend is important, the historical basis of that trend, and research has to be done in order to present the story in the form of a feature. And reporting about cinema, films are very important in the sense like people look into films and they find some kind of a solace after watching films. So one has to understand about the camera angles, they have to understand about the literary design of the script, they have to understand about the cinematography, the editing style, and the sound design in order to understand the film critically and to report on the film. So the basic knowledge of the film theories are also kind of important. Reporting disaster events, weather as well as tragedies. So any kind of event, like maybe earthquake or volcanic eruptions or hurricanes, all these fall within this particular category of disaster. It can be oil spill or radiation or chemical accidents, and one has to understand why this has happened, and talk with the people who have been affected by that disaster, also with the government, what the government is thinking about bringing in to help the people. So those kind of aspects also need to be kind of covered in this kind of disaster related events. And there are disasters like accidents, which can be train accident, road accident. So any train accident or road accident and airplane crashes, those has to be also reported, and that reporting has to be done in a way so that that the reporter kind of understands that that the victims do not feel that the reporter is actually taking over their privacy or their emotional aspect. So their emotional condition has to be taken in mind or kept in mind while the reporter goes ahead to report about that particular story. There are natural disasters, as I have already mentioned: earthquakes, floods, cyclones, typhoons. So those have to be also reported, and a basic knowledge about the geographical as well as the climatic conditions has to be known. Man-made disasters like oil spills, nuclear disasters, building collapses, that is also kind of important, and the reporter has to keep in mind about the ways in which this kind of disasters happen. And lastly, the weather stories. When the reporter reports about the weather stories, one has to kind of understand the climatic conditions of that particular area, and why a particular cold spell has been continuing for a long period of time. Talk with the meteorological department pertaining to that area. Read more about the climatic changes happening globally, and how it is affecting that particular region. And also use proper terms, which is very important. Any particular story or any particular beat a journalist is covering, he or she has to have an in-depth knowledge of that particular beat. So I think that's it. That's the kind of reporting that is happening in today's world. But yes, definitely there is a overlap in certain areas and certain fields of reporting. And whoever covers whichever area, he or she has to have a specialized knowledge regarding that, and has to research about the area of coverage in depth.